Hi, I'm Clare here with MSCR Fitness for a class of gentle yoga. And we'll start today standing in a mountain position. So you could have your feet more or less below your hips. You can always have your stance a little closer together with your feet or wider apart. You might take just a moment though to feel into your feet on the ground. Maybe spreading out your toes a little, a sense of pressing your heels into the ground. And then you can bring your attention up through your legs, maybe keeping a small bend in your knees, but engaging the muscles in your legs a little bit, and your gluteal muscles, and abdominal muscles. So coming up through your body, you might have a sense of lifting along your spine and maybe rolling your shoulders up and back and down a couple of times. You could have a sense of your tailbone reaching down towards the ground. And as you keep some engagement in your abdominal muscles, you might lift your chest a little. Feel your head centered right over your shoulders. The top of your head pressing upwards. So this could be your mountain position, either with your hands at your sides resting, or with your hands on your torso. And maybe just taking a couple of breaths here. If it feels okay, you could slow your breathing down a little. As you breathe in, maybe feeling a little sense of expansion in your torso, and as you breathe out, feeling the connection with the ground beneath you. And as you feel ready, you can bring your hands together at your heart, either palms on your heart or palm to palm, your choice. And we could begin to move a little more. So you might breathe in and extend. And breathe out and come back to your heart. That would be one possibility here. Another possibility might be to circle upwards as you breathe in and then exhale back to your heart. So finding a movement that you like, where you might extend in some way, and then return maybe one or two more of these movements of your choice. And then when you're ready, coming back to your heart, and we can come into moving our necks here a little bit. You might rest your fingertips by your collarbones or at your sides. Maybe lifting your chin a bit and lowering it to feel into the front of your neck and the back. You might take your head side to side, feeling to the sides of your neck. And maybe seeing if there's some movements here that you like for your neck that help you feel into all parts of your neck. So another possibility would be side flexion, where you drop an ear towards the shoulder, and then doing the same on the other side. Taking a few more moments here for any movements for your neck that you'd like to have. And when you feel ready, you could move on to your shoulders. Either moving both shoulders together or one at a time. I often like to move one at a time because just it kind of lets you feel into one shoulder. It could be that one is tighter than the other or has different needs. So you can do it either way though. Feeling into your shoulder as much as you can. Noticing where the stretch moves as you move. You could extend your arm if you like doing that. So seeing if there's a movement here that helps you feel into your shoulder. Stretch it out a little bit. And then if you were working on one one side only, you could come to the other side. Maybe shrugging, circling. So shrugging would be more lifting your shoulder towards your ear and pressing it away. And you might like doing that. Or circling. You could circle your elbow. You might feel the stretch kind of spread out a little along your sides, the side of your body, maybe into your pectoral muscles and your chest. And possibly stretching your arm with your arm extended here. So maybe just taking it a little gently. If you have any soreness in your shoulders, you don't have to force anything. You could come into moving both shoulders if you haven't yet. Seeing where they feel ready to go. Circling one way and the other would be an option. Circling both elbows. Maybe extending both arms. Finding some movements like this. And maybe some swimming movements. Sometimes that can be a nice way to feel into your shoulders, your shoulder blades. Generally, if you have any shoulder issues, you might move slowly enough that you can really feel how far your shoulders want to move today. And you're welcome to continue with your shoulders as long as you like. There may be other stretches. Here, I'll offer a couple more. So this could be one, or you could press up on one side and do the same on the other. Or if you have some other stretch that you like for your shoulders, you might go there. When you're ready, you could come into your hands a little bit. So one of the things I love in yoga is this emphasis on moving all parts of our bodies and bringing awareness into all the areas of movement in our bodies. It's that attentiveness and awareness that can really add to the benefits that you experience from yoga. So you might stretch and massage each finger. That would be a possibility. You could play the piano, play air piano here. Or you could extend your fingers and press forward and flex and draw back. And you can choose if you want to synchronize your movement and your breathing. One way to do that would be to breathe in here and exhale as you draw back. And possibly pressing upwards. Coming down. And then whenever you feel ready, you could come into moving your torso a little more. We could start with extending and flexing. So standing cow and cat. You might have a little bend in your knees, still feeling your feet on the ground as you find a back bend, and then rounding. And as I usually say in our classes, if you have any disc issues in your back or osteoporosis, just taking it really gently with the flexing. So in that case, you might more have an extension, a back bend, and come back to neutral. That would be another possibility. So maybe extending and flexing like that. Maybe extending and returning to neutral. You can stay with your hands on your hips, or you could do those same things, bringing your arms into it. Maybe flexing here, or coming back to more of a neutral. This one is sometimes called Raman's breath. So you could breathe in as you extend your arms, breathe out as you bring your hands together. Have a nice flying movement. Another one that's similar, you could try if you want, is to reach up and then exhale, come down, hugging your shoulders. Reaching up, exhaling down, the other arm on top. Maybe one more. And then coming back up, you could find a little bit of twisting. So you might take your stance a little wider, have your shoulder blades together, a little bend in the knees, rotating your spine, going to one side and the other. Noticing what you can feel in your back as you move. You could stay with this kind of twisting, or you could go to more of a flowy twisting movement, reaching out to one side and the other. Maybe reaching up or down, or straight out to the sides. And you're welcome to continue twisting in the way that you like, or you might come to circling your upper body here. So keeping your hips in one place and circling your upper body around one way and then the other. And if you like, you could come to hip circles, standing up, your head staying in one place, circling your hips around. Here too, seeing if you can notice where the stretch moves as you move. Where do you feel it? This practice of paying attention to where the stretch goes, where the sensations are, can help to calm your nervous system and can help with things like anxiety and depression a little bit when you have good connectivity in your nervous system. It's a possibility there. You might also come down and feel into your knees. Maybe circling your knees a bit. And if you like, coming up and finding a stretch for your toes, maybe pressing your toes against the ground, or lifting your foot. You could find some movement for your knee and your ankle, and then your toes from here. Possibly feeling into your hip as well. We can do the same on the other side. You might press down to find a stretch for your toes, or possibly lift that foot. Find some movement for your knee, for your ankle, and your toes, maybe your hip. And then coming out, coming back to your mountain position. Here we'll take a forward fold. So maybe for this first one, we could just glide our hands down our legs to get into it. If you have a block or some kind of support you want to put in front of you, you could do that. But maybe starting with that sense of lengthening upwards through your whole body, mountain position. Breathing in. As you breathe out, a little bend in your knees, gliding downwards, keeping your back pretty elongated here. And just seeing how far you go. Could be you end up above your knees or below. You might have your hands on the ground. It's all good. And if you're up a little higher, maybe breathing in and stretching your tailbone to the top of your head. Breathing out and coming a little lower. Seeing how far you want to take this. You could release your neck and head downwards if you want. And you can bend your knees as much as you like. Maybe bending and straightening them a few times. You could walk your hands to one side of your feet and the other. And if you have a favorite way that you like to work with a forward fold, you're welcome to do that. Another possibility is hands on the fronts of your shins, breathing in, lifting your head and heart, and breathing out and coming down. So you might do that a couple of times. When you're ready to come up, possibly bending your knees a little, lengthening from your tailbone to the top of your head, pressing your feet against the ground, and rising here, coming back to your heart. Okay. And here we might roll our shoulders a little bit. And we'll come into a short balancing practice, and then we'll come down on the mats for a bit. Okay. So you could start in your mountain position. If, like me, it helps you to feel the middle of the top of your head. Not everybody needs this, but you could touch the middle of the top of your head. What you're looking for is a sense of a center line coming right down through your body. It's a place that you can be in balance around. And then bringing that center line, let's say over your right foot. So your weight is on your right foot. Generally, you don't want your hip going out to the side, right? So you just want to be centered right there. You come up onto the toes of your left foot. So I'm mirroring you here, right? Correct. So you're balanced on your right foot, over your right foot, lifting up your left foot. You might begin to explore, maybe lifting your knee. You could stay there. You could try stretching your leg out in front of you. You could explore stretching your leg behind you. Seeing how far you go here. And coming out whenever you're ready. So like I always say in my yoga classes in person as well, I find balancing very challenging, and I think a good aspect or a strong part of a balancing practice is working just with the voices in your own head, or the sense of, oh, I should be doing this better. If you notice that going on, just come back. Like always in mindfulness, just come back to seeing what's happening and what's possible. So that's one way you could work there. You could, if you like, come to having your knee up, lowering and rising on your right leg. You can come out at any time and rest your leg. You could also explore taking your left knee up to the left. Maybe taking your left leg over to the right. And then when you're ready, coming out. You can come back to mountain position. Find a place where you feel pretty centered. If it helps, you could touch the middle of the top of your head, find where your center line is, and now bring that over your left leg. Coming up on your right toes. You could stay there. If that's a challenge. Some days this might be where you go in a balancing practice. Other days you might lift your knee and practice balancing there. Maybe stretching out your leg in front of you. Maybe exploring bringing that leg back behind you. Just seeing where you go with it. Coming out when you're ready to come out. Okay. Oh, or you could come up, I forgot, we want to do the same thing on both sides. You could bring your knee out to the side. You could bring it across. And if you want to, you could lower and rise up here. Strengthen the muscles that help you balance. And stabilize your knee. Coming up and out when you're ready. Taking a little movement. And at this point, we'll go ahead and come down on our mats. And you're welcome to lie on your back if you like, if it's a comfortable position for you. You could do that in constructive rest with your knees bent like this, Soles of your feet on the ground, knees bent, legs either parallel or possibly taking your feet out wide and resting your knees together. You can see how that feels. If you'd rather stretch out your legs, you could do that. And we'll take just, let's say, 3 or 4 breaths here in the position that you choose to feel your breathing. And not everybody likes to pay attention to their breathing, so you can certainly do this practice without that. But a possibility here would be to put your hands on your belly. And as you breathe in, see if you can let your belly rise a little bit. As you breathe out, see if you can let your navel drop down towards the ground. Maybe your low back drops a little bit too. So as you breathe in, it's a sense of expansion. As you breathe out, it's a softening downwards. So if this feels like something you'd like to practice, you might take 3 or 4 more breaths like that, expanding as you breathe in. As you breathe out, releasing downwards onto the ground. At your own pace, expanding as you breathe in, and exhaling and releasing downwards. Maybe one more. So that's one possible breathing practice. I'll offer one more. Again, just see if you feel like doing this. This one, you could start with your palms down on the ground next to your hips. As you breathe in, lifting your arms, seeing how far you want to take them, and then on the exhale, returning your hands down next to your hips. So as you breathe in, it's lifting. And as you exhale, coming down, hands by your hips. Maybe one more of these if you like. Then from here, we might move into a little bit of flexing and extending the low back and a bridge practice. So for this flexing and extending, as you breathe in, you'll actually lift your low back off the ground, so making a little bit of an arch here. As you breathe out, pressing your low back against the ground. So sometimes these are called pelvic tilts. Breathing in, breathing out. It's a lot like a cow and cat movement in yoga, just for your low back. So you find this extension, a bit of a back bend under your low back as you breathe in, as you breathe out, pressing your low back against the ground. Maybe one more of these. And then if you have any back pain or soreness in your back, you might stay with those. If you'd like to move on to a bridge practice, you could reach your fingertips down by your heels. Maybe check that your legs are about hips width apart with your knees. As you're ready, pressing against the ground with your feet, breathing in, pressing your hips upwards and rolling your shoulder blades together. Maybe staying here for a breath or two, pressing upwards with your hips. When you're ready, on an exhalation, rolling your spine back down. So you could do that where you breathe in and lift and then breathe out and lower, or you could come up and stay up for a few breaths. Maybe taking a few more of these bridge movements. Breathing in, lifting, rolling your shoulder blades together. Exhaling as you come back down, feeling one part of your back after another come back to the ground. Of course, you're welcome to keep going with those bridge movements. If you feel ready to be done with them, you might try bringing your knees up into this Apanasana position, rolling on the small of your back a little bit. And you could stay with these movements, stay in Apanasana, or if you like, you could come to this a set of windshield wiper movements, where you might start with your feet close together on the ground and sway your knees side to side. So it's a kind of a reclining twist where you could stay with this movement, just rocking side to side. You might feel like you want to just bring your knees down to one side and stay there for a few breaths. So if you do that, you might stay on one side for a few breaths, and then take your knees to the other side for a few breaths. So this first set is with your feet close together. And as with all of these stretches, really seeing if it feels like a good stretch for you. It can come out at any time. If you'd like to try that again with your feet about a foot apart, you could do that and see how that feels. To rock your knees side to side with your feet about a foot apart. It's a possibility. Or you could come to one side and stay there for a few breaths again. And then go to the other side and do the same thing. So moving at your own pace, you can always stay in any of these positions longer than I do, or for less time. And then the final set would be with your feet out at the edges of your mat, bringing your knees to one side from there. So you might be able to feel this when your feet are wider apart. You might feel it a little more in your hips, maybe in your quadriceps muscles, maybe your gluteal muscles. Noticing. And whenever you feel ready, come back to center, and we can do a little bit of figure four. So you might bring your right foot up onto your left knee, maybe staying right here with your left foot on the ground, maybe lifting your legs towards your upper body, and finding the amount of stretch that you want to feel in your right hip, and your right gluteal muscles. Could possibly stretch your left leg toward the sky here. And you could choose to keep your head on the ground, or if you want to do some core strengthening, you could engage your abdominal muscles, lift up and lower down a few times. And then coming back, you might take a moment to rock your figure four. See how that feels to rock your legs side to side when they're in figure four position. At some point, coming back to center, stretching both legs, maybe wiggling your toes, finding some movement for your ankles and knees. And then bringing your right foot to the ground, left foot onto your right knee. And again, you might stay right here. Or if you like, you could lift your legs, draw them towards your upper body to deepen the stretch in your left hip and your left gluteal muscles. Breathing, long, slow breaths if you can. Seeing if you can soften your shoulders and your neck. You could extend your right leg if you want, or you could keep it bent. You could keep your head on the ground, or using your abdominal muscles, you could lift and lower a few times. Maybe exhaling as you lift. Sometimes that can help with activating your abdominal muscles. Inhaling as you lower. And then when you're ready, setting your head down, you might rock it side to side a little to Release your neck muscles. And if you like, rock your figure 4 legs side to side a few times. Coming back to center, we could stretch our legs to the sky, find a little movement again for toes, ankles, knees. Maybe bringing your left foot to the ground, you could circle into your right hip. Or if you don't like the feeling of circling, you might just hug your right knee. So either circling or hugging your knee if you prefer. And then switching, right foot on the ground, you might circle into your left hip or possibly hug your left knee. And then from here, we'll come over onto our bellies. So, moving slowly, might come around and come down to a low Sphinx position here. So a low Sphinx could be on your crossed arms with your chin resting on your hands. You'll come forward a little. So you could rest your chin on your hands or your forehead. If your shoulders don't like this position, you could come to a low cobra instead here. So you might take just a couple of breaths in one of those positions. And notice how you're feeling maybe in your low back. For some people, this might feel already like a lot of a back bend, a little or a lot of a back bend. So if this feels like as far as you want to go here, you could stay there. If you'd like to deepen the back bend, you could come up with your elbows ahead of your shoulders here. So just checking in with how your low back feels. You could come up higher, deepening the curve with your elbows under your shoulders. Maybe taking 2 or 3 breaths wherever you land with your Sphinx position. And your head could be in line with your upper back. You can also explore gently lowering. Or if you prefer, you could tip it back a little bit. Lifting your chin. Maybe 1 or 2 more breaths in your Sphinx position. And you're welcome to stay here. So in Yin Yoga, another kind of yoga that I teach, you might stay in a Sphinx position for a long time, a couple of minutes. So you could stay if you like. If you'd like to come to more of a Cobra Practice, Bhujangasana, the version that I know, that I was trained to do, it can differ from different schools of yoga, but this one's one that's really designed to keep your back pretty safe, where you have your hands next to your shoulders, palms down, but you're not pressing against the ground. So this is actually not a push-up. It's more that you breathe in and use your core strength to come up and then come back down. So you can rest your palms on the ground or you can lift them off the ground. And you might feel your gluteal muscles working here. It's a sense of lengthening from your tailbone to the top of your head as well as rising. You could come back to Sphinx at any time. If you'd like to go to Shalavasana the Locust, this would be lifting your legs as well as your arms, maybe from this arm position. Breathing in, lifting, reaching your fingertips back towards your toes, breathing out, coming down. And you could continue to lift and lower, or you could come up and stay here for a few breaths. Really reaching back. When you're ready, coming back down. Maybe returning to a low Sphinx position. You might rock your hips a little, Bend your knees, possibly rock your feet side to side. And then you might circle your ankles and wiggle your toes. Bring your legs to the ground. And here you could choose. You might stay with a back bending practice, or if you're comfortable with child position, that would be a possibility. So if you want to go to child, that's a flexed position. You could be coming up onto your forearms, lifting your hips, bringing your knees forward. And for child, you can keep your knees close together, or you can take them out to the sides a little. Just stretches you a little differently depending on where you take your knees. So maybe reaching forward here. And with my knees out to my sides, my hips are flexed. My spine is probably, it feels like it's pretty lengthened, straight-ish. If I wanted to flex and round my spine more, I could keep my knees together. You might see there's a little more rounding there, and that will stretch along the back of my spine. And child position is not comfortable for every person's body, so you could also stay up on your forearms and still get the stretch for your gluteal muscles and your hips. If you'd like to add in a side stretch, you could walk your arms over to one side and maybe take 2 or 3 breaths here. And then walk your arms over to the other side and do the same thing. Coming back to center. You're welcome to stay in child, or if you're still in Sphinx, you could stay there longer. It's feeling helpful to you. From here, if you like, you could come up and do some more extending and flexing with me for our torsos. So you can do that from sitting. You might come back to Robin's breath, like we were doing earlier. So this is extension, back bend. This is flexing, right? Rounding. Or you could come to table position if this is comfortable for your body. Knees under your hips, wrists under your shoulders, either the tops of your toes on the ground or the bottoms of your toes on the ground. And as you breathe in, you might lift your tailbone, lower your belly, and lift your heart. Maybe as you breathe out, lowering your tailbone, rounding your spine, and lowering your head. You might breathe in to the back bend, maybe breathe out as you flex. Or if you just want to pay attention to the movement and not think about your breathing, that is okay. It's also another way you could work with this. Seeing how much you can stay connected with feeling the sensations of your body moving and stretching. So you could stay with cow and cat here, or you could walk your arms and hands forward and slowly lower towards a back bend here, just being really attentive to your shoulders and low back. And then maybe finding a flexed position here. And just keeping in mind, this is going to look different on each person. So really feeling the amount of back bend that feels appropriate and helpful for your back. And feeling how far you want to go back. You know, if you have knee issues, you might not go all the way back to child. You might stay somewhere in here. Maybe 1 or 2 more of those movements. Another extending, flexing movement you could try would be coming up on your knees, Bali seal here, where you breathe in, engaging your abdominal muscles to kind of Stabilize your body, but finding a bit of a back bend in your upper back, and then coming down here to flex. So extension and flexion here. And then as you feel ready, you might come back to table position. Here we can take a moment. You could go to a down dog on the mat. If you have a wall, you could do it there. So I'll demonstrate it both ways. From the mat, starting in table, walking your hands just a little forward, spreading out your fingers, curling your toes under, breathing in, breathing out, pressing back. And it's okay to have your knees pretty bent, looking to stretch as much as possible from your tailbone to the top of your head. You could bend and straighten both knees, seeing if you can let your ears be between your upper shoulders, maybe a sense of broadening along your shoulders. You could walk the dog where you bend one knee and then the other, pressing one heel towards the ground and then the other. So you might stay with your down dog as long as you like. I think I'll just demonstrate with a pretend wall here. So if you're working with a wall, if you don't like being down on the mat, you put your hands against a wall like this and still get a pretty good stretch for your back and your legs. So a wall down dog. One other alternative is to do dolphin. If your wrists don't like down dog, you can be down on your forearms here and then pressing back. And you might feel this a lot on the backs of your legs. You might be able to feel the stretch along your spine here as well. So whichever of those versions you're practicing, maybe we can start towards a standing forward fold. And you can get to standing forward fold however it works for you. One possibility is to walk your hands and feet together. Come back here for a moment. When you're ready to come up, bending your knees a little, straightening your spine, pressing your feet against the ground, and slowly coming up. Exhaling here. Roll your shoulders a little bit. And we'll just take a couple of minutes of standing practices here, now that we're up again, and then we'll come back down to rest. Okay. So we'll do a couple of Brahma Dandasana movements and a warrior two. Brahma Dandasana, you could have your feet just a little wider than mountain position, a little bend in your knees. And you can take a few moments, if you just come up from down dog and you want to just feel your heartbeat or your breathing, your feet on the ground, just take your time. When you're ready, here's one Brahma Dandasana series. So you can reach up. As you bring your hands back to your heart, sitting back with a long spine, bending your knees. Pressing upwards, opening your arms, folding so that you're parallel to the ground with your torso. Reaching back behind you, lengthening, coming down, hands to the fronts of your shins, lifting your head and heart, lowering your head and heart, pressing your feet against the ground, long spine, as you come back up, and come back to your heart. So, as I've been saying, you're always welcome to breathe in a way that for you facilitates your movement. Here is one possibility for breathing cues with Brahma Dandasana. Maybe breathing in, breathing out as you sit back with a long spine, breathing in as you come up, breathing out, coming down parallel to the ground, Breathing in, reaching behind you, lengthening your spine. Exhaling down. Inhaling, lifting your head and heart. Exhaling, lowering your head and heart. Pressing your feet against the ground, lengthening your spine. Breathing in as you rise up. Breathing out as you come back to your heart. Roll your shoulders here. And if you'd like to take just a few minutes with a Warrior 2 practice, you could do that. So you might take a wide stance if you're going to do that. And maybe let's just say we're going to turn our toes this way, so to your left. So I've got your left foot, you could have toes just really in line with your mat, going that way. Your right foot, maybe about a 45-degree angle. See what works for your bone structure. You want to be able to feel like your hips can still face the front of the mat, the long side, as much as possible. Breathing in. Breathing out, you could come with your palms up as you bring your shoulder blades together, or palms down, your choice. Engaging this whole front side of your body. Maybe broadening your stance if you need to, and then bending and straightening your left knee while you keep your torso upright. You might look over the middle fingers of your left hand. And then bringing your knee right over your ankle, if you can. You don't want it much beyond your ankle, because that's a little vulnerable for your knee. But you might take a few breaths here, Warrior 2. Or you could come down here, come to side angle. Possibly stretch here in your side angle, or here. When you're ready, coming back up. Maybe exhaling as you find reverse warrior here. And you can step out at any time, or you can take one more series. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in to come up, breathing out to reverse. And then coming back up, you could step out. If you'd like to take a moment in triangle, you might mostly straighten your left leg. And you can glide towards that side of the room and come to your triangle, maybe here. You can see how far you want to go, keeping a sense of lengthening from your tailbone to the top of your head. When you're ready, reaching your right fingers to come up. You can reach up, exhale to the heart here. Turn your toes towards the middle. And maybe we can take just a moment here. Just come back, have a little movement for your ankles and feet. Take a wide stance again. And this time we'll turn our toes this way. So, right toes going right to the end of the mat, left toes coming in, a little bit of an angle there. Hips towards the long side of the mat. Breathing in, breathing out, shoulder blades together. Palms up or palms down, your choice. Bending and straightening here, keeping your torso pretty upright if you can. And then bringing your knee right over your ankle. You could stay here in Warrior 2 or come to side angle, your version. So your left arm could be in line with your torso. It could be straight upright. It could be hand on your hip. When you're ready to come up, breathing in Warrior 2. Exhaling to reverse. You could step out or do one more set with me here. Breathing in Warrior 2. Breathing out side angle. Breathing in Warrior 2, exhaling to reverse. And then as you come back to Warrior 2, maybe straightening a little bit your right leg, gliding to the right with your arms and torso, keeping your torso pretty lengthened, your spine lengthened, finding your triangle position here. Taking a breath or two, reaching with your left hand when you're ready to come up. Exhale into your heart, toes back to the front, and we can come back to center here. Let's take a little movement. If there's any last stretch you want to have, you might take that stretch now. So it could be a forward fold, or you might feel like coming down to your mat and rocking your knees side to side again. And then we'll just take a couple of minutes to rest. So you might come, to a reclining twist, or to the windshield wiper movements that we did earlier. Just feeling if there's a last stretch you'd like to have here for a few breaths. If you're in a reclining twist like I am, when you change sides, you might lift your top leg, follow with your bottom leg, and then go to the other side. Taking a few breaths on the second side. And then eventually lifting your top leg, and then your bottom leg, and finding your resting position if you haven't already. So you could stretch out your legs and arms, or you could have your knees bent, maybe resting your knees together. Finding your resting position. We'll just take a few minutes here for a guided rest. So as you find the position you're going to be in to rest, maybe taking 3 or 4 long, slow breaths in and out. As you breathe in, maybe you could feel a sense of expansion in your body. As you breathe out, seeing if you can have a sense of release down onto the ground. For a few breaths, you might bring your attention to your feet, feeling into your feet, and inviting your feet to release and rest in any way that you might like to do that. If you like, you could then bring your attention to your legs. Taking long, full breaths, feeling into your calves and your knees and your thighs, ankles, hips, inviting your legs to let go and rest in any way that feels possible for them. If you like, you could bring your attention into your gluteal muscles on the back of your body, abdominal muscles in your belly, the muscles in your low back. Taking long, slow breaths, inviting the lower part of your torso to release and rest. You might feel up into your mid-back and your rib cage, and then up into your shoulder blades and shoulders and chest, your heart and lungs. Inviting the upper part of your torso to release and rest in any way possible. For a few breaths, you might notice if you can let your whole torso soften and release and rest. Maybe your shoulders, upper arms can rest. Elbows, forearms, wrists, hands, and fingers, releasing and resting just as much as they might feel able to or ready to. If you like, you could feel into your neck and your head. Invite the muscles of your neck to release and rest and your jaws, your mouth, the roof of your mouth, cheeks, ears, nose, releasing maybe, eyes and eyelids, eyebrows and forehead, and even your scalp. You might take a few breaths and feel the muscles of your face and your head and neck releasing and resting. And if you like, maybe taking one more minute here. See if you can stay aware of how you feel in your body as you rest. You might take just 5 or 6 more breaths in your resting practice. And as you feel ready, noticing if there's any particular part of your body that wants to initiate some movement. It could be your shoulders, or your ankles, or your hips, or your fingers. Finding a little movement, letting the movement spread from one area to another. Maybe taking a whole body stretch somewhere along the way. You might roll to one side if you like, and then give yourself a lot of support with your arms and hands as you come back up to sitting. Any sitting position that works for you, lengthening your spine upwards. You could finish here, just taking some long breaths in and out. Or you could come back to moving your arms, maybe extending as you breathe in. As you breathe out, returning to your heart. And I'll just finish by saying, may we help each other cultivate kindness towards our bodies, clear thinking, open hearts, peace within us and peace in the world. Thank you for sharing this practice, and I wish you peace.